Hello everyone, welcome to sj'sclasses. It's a poem that we are to discuss today, and the poem is written by Kae Tempest. As always, let me give you a brief introduction to the poet before we start reading the poem. Please don't consider these introductions as something which is less significant or of little importance. Now, the introduction to poet is necessary. It's necessary because it's through such introduction that you come to an understanding regarding the kind of poems that these poets have written, the ages during which these writers lived, the kind of issues that they discussed through their works. So it's through an overall understanding of the poet that perhaps you arrive at a total or complete understanding of the work that we are about to discuss, or the works we have been discussing so far. So let me just give you a brief introduction to the poet, Kae Tempest. Kae Tempest is a rapper, poet, playwright, and novelist who was born in London in 1985. It's quite interesting to note that the writer that we are about to discuss is a rapper. Rarely do we come across such figures in the academic curriculum. So we have a peculiar figure over here, and that's Kae Tempest. She's also a rapper, and she is peculiar in yet another sense. In August 2020, she revealed that she's to change her name, or she changed her name from Kate Tempest to Kae Tempest, and also that she is to change the pronouns used to address her. In a message which was written in Twitter, she told her fans that she is changing her name from Kate to Kay, and the pronouns used to address the poet from she and her to they and them. So from henceforth, you will address me not as her, but as they, and also as them. So that is the kind of change that she brought about in her life. Now, she is known for works that examine the agonies of the modern world, and her poetry, when you read them, you understand that they are beautiful in a sense, they are raw and also bold. She did not give a clear structure to most of her poems, and the lines flow into each other, and that's exactly why her poetry is often referred to as spoken poetry. She also uses a multitude of different styles, tones, and lengths when she composes poems, and there is a rhythm that permeates all her works, which begs for it to be spoken rather than recited. So it's mostly, the lines that you confront when you read Kae Tempest's poems, they are mostly written in a manner which can be spoken rather than recited. And in 2014, Kae Tempest, they were selected as one of the Poetry Book Society's next generation poets. Now, to those of you who are not aware of the Poetry Book Society, it was founded in 1935 by T.S. Eliot, and it was founded with the purpose of propagating the art of poetry. And it's this particular society that addressed them or gave them the title Next Generation Poets. And K. Tempest's formidable body of works include Everything Speaks on Its Way, which is the first collection of poems published under their own imprint. And they have also written Brand New Ancients, which is a verse epic. And this particular verse epic, it's about the story of two families and how their lives are intertwined, and it's set against the background of the city in which they live, and also braided with classical myth. And through this particular work, Tempest showed that how old myths still live in us, still live in the everyday lives that we live, and also how various acts of violence, bravery, sacrifice, and love, which our lives are made of, and it makes our lives no less dramatic and powerful than that and than those of the gods who existed earlier, or it's said to have existed earlier. And this particular work, which is titled Brand New Ancients, it also won the 2012 Ted Hughes Award for Innovation in Poetry. They have also written two plays. Now, whenever I say, please don't be under the impression that we are talking or we are discussing about a group of people, but rather, we are talking about a person who has changed the pronouns from her and she to they and them. So, they have also written plays titled Wasted and Hopefully Devoted. And in 2014 came her most acclaimed collection, which is Hold Your Own. It's from this particular collection that I have taken a poem to discuss today. And they were also nominated for the Mercury Prize, and the work which was nominated for the prize was Everybody Down. And they have also written a novel, and the title of the novel is The Bricks That Build the Houses, and it came out in 2016. Now, to talk about the poem that we are about to discuss today, it's titled The Woman the Boy Became. Pretty strange title. Perhaps the only background that you need, or the only prerequisite that is needed before you read this particular poem is an understanding regarding the mythological figure who has been incorporated implicitly and vaguely into this poem. And the mythological figure is none other than Tiresias, the blind prophet who appear uh, frequently in Greek plays and tragedies. And as I said earlier, this poem is taken from the collection Hold Your Own. And this particular collection is based on the mythical figure of Tiresias, who had been turned into a woman by Hera. Hera in Greek mythology is the goddess of women, marriage, family, and childbirth, according to Greek religion and mythology. And what happened is that, after Hera turns Tiresias into a woman, she marries a man and bears children. Tiresias, as a woman, lives the life of a woman. She gets married and she even bears children. And later on, Tiresias, as a woman, she returns to the spot where he was cursed by Hera. And the reason why Hera cursed Tiresias was he attacked two snakes which were mating. And later on, after all these, he comes back to the spot and he again sees two snakes over there, but he does not disturb them. And then the curse is broken and Tiresias becomes a man again. And having lived as both male and female, Tiresias is, called in by Zeus to settle a issue. And the issue was, Zeus wanted to know, which of the both sexes, male or female, has more pleasure during sex. And his answer was something which favored Zeus, and Hera became so angry with this particular response that Tiresias gave that she blinded him. And that is why we always refer to Tiresias as the blind prophet. And this is the reason or story behind how Tiresias became blind. So we don't have to go into the details regarding all these, becoming blind and such stories behind it. Now, the poem, it has implicitly incorporated into it the story of Tiresias, or this particular aspect of Hera cursing Tiresias and Tiresias becoming a woman. And you can read the poem with have bearing this particular mythological character and story in your mind, but you can even read the poem without keeping these things in your mind. Now, it can be even read in isolation. All right, let's start reading the poem. At the very outset, let me tell you that this is quite an abstract kind of poem. It's abstract in the sense that if you don't have any other idea regarding the story of Tiresias, you might go on to interpret the poem as the story of Kae Tempest. And it's only when you read between the lines and you go through the poem in detail, reading every word attentively, that you will be able to establish connection at most of the points. I have tried my best to interpret the lines in the best possible way. If there are any shortcomings, please do excuse me. So let's read the poem. Born more brown than most, born warm, born close to ghosts, born storm, born old, grew young. You could tell she wasn't from the same place as the rest, born strong, born wrong. So the very first line gives us a hint into the character. The poet says, born more brown than most. Brown means having more muscular strength. So this is a character, or the character that the poet is about to discuss or elaborate in this particular poem is more brown than the most. The character has more muscular strength than the most. And the character is born warm. Warm, it could mean friendly or lively or having a strong enthusiasm. Born close to ghosts. So these are the lines in which you can interpret it better when you relate it to Tiresias. Tiresias was someone who had this divine gift of prophecy. He could prophesy things. He could foresee things, and therefore, he was very close to spirits, ghosts. So, born close to ghosts. Born storm. Storm here could be interpreted as the power of a storm. Probably it's an hyperbole. It's a hyperbole or an exaggerative statement to convey the character's potential. Born old. Now, this particular phrase is quite ironical with the previous statement. Earlier, poet said that the character has the capability or the power of a storm, but here the poet states that the character is born old. It could mean that the person is both strong and weak at the same time. Grew young, and this is what happened to the person. Probably the transformation from man to woman and woman to man is being quoted here. This is why I said earlier that if you have no idea regarding the story of Tiresias, you might this poem might seem very vague to you from time to time, from point to point. You could tell she wasn't from the same place as the rest, born strong, born wrong. So, this is where you get an idea regarding who the person or character is. The character described by the poet is a woman, and it's only when you understand the stories or mythology behind the collection from which this particular poem has been taken, you understand that the character is actually Tiresias. So you could tell she wasn't from the same place as the rest. So it's in these particular verses that the poet establishes that the character that the poet talks about is a woman. And this woman was an extraordinary or strange woman, and that is why she is described as someone who does not come from the same place as the rest. She was born strong and born wrong. Wrong here could mean not according to our expectations, but she grew up differently. She grew. Growing is what anyone do. So it's something which is quite natural. Given the particulars means the facts. Given the particulars, she knew what she knew. This could probably mean that she did not regard herself as a person who knew things beyond what she actually is. She knew what she knew. She was very thorough about whatever that she knew. Now, all these are traits of Tiresias as well. No, he was a prophet, and he used to prophesy things, and he had strong belief in his prophecies. Now, he used to he used to interpret symbols and signals that were given to him by spiritual beings and divine forces, and he always used to trust his prophecies. And what he knew, he was confident about what he knew. Perhaps the same idea is being reflected here through the character of a woman. She knew what she knew. She was ridiculous. She was unreasonable, probably to the men who listened to Tiresias, or here in this context, probably to the men who listened to this woman, might think that she is ridiculous. She was unreasonable. Born too smart, too dumb. These are antithetical statements being made here. Antithetical statements means contradictory statements. Born too smart and too dumb. She was smart and dumb. Born to hold the world under her tongue. It should be the power of speech, or when you talk about tiresias, the power to prophesy things. So it could be that which is being described here. She must have had great oratorical skills, just like tiresias. Don't swallow yet. So the poet hasn't ended. Now she has got more to say about this particular person. She felt all the things that others didn't feel, or if they did a lot to conceal what the feelings were. So this woman, she felt everything that others didn't feel, or even if they felt, they tried to conceal, or they hid it from others, even if they felt it. She felt skies and bricks and rain. She felt it all. It made her fall and weep beneath a crawling dawn when everything was ruined, torn. So, as I said earlier, she is a woman who could feel everything. She felt all the elements around her. She felt everything that was part of nature. She felt the skies, the bricks, and the rain, and she felt it all. And probably it's because she felt everything that she felt. Maybe not literally, but metaphorically, to fall in life. And when you recount Tiresias' story or Tiresias' life, it's probably because his prophecy, which led him to, or his ability to prophecy or prophesize things that led him to his destruction or doom. At most of the times when you read plays, especially like Antigone, you understand that it's his ability to prophesy that brings about the wrath of kings. Just like you see Creon getting angry at Tiresias for prophesying in the play Antigone, written by Sophocles. So it's probably because her power to feel everything that she felt, and has everything got destroyed. Probably that particular reference is to her life, which was gradually crumbling down, gradually getting destroyed bit by bit. And she felt the pain of this destruction and wept beneath the crawling dawn, which could be a metaphorical way of depicting the long hours she spent crying. So she felt skies and bricks and rain. She felt it all. It made her fall. It here stands for her ability to feel. So it's her this particular ability to feel everything around her that made her fall and weep beneath a crawling dawn when everything was ruined, torn. She felt ill, but she felt still. She had to undergo severe difficulties. Illness doesn't exactly mean a kind of disease or something. It could metaphorically mean the severe hardship that she had to confront. So she had to undergo different or severe difficulties, but she still felt. She could respond to everything that happened around her. She could respond to everything that was around her. How many yous have you been? How many lined up inside, each killing the last? Now, the reference or description is probably of the multiple characters that are there in you. When you talk about Tiresias, he was a man in the beginning, and later on he became a woman, and again he changed himself, or he was, when the curse was broken, he changed again to a man. So, how many yous have you been? So, how many characters are there in you? The poet asks how many different characters are there in you who have lined up inside and who kill the last so that it can survive. How many times have you seen yourself change, felt yourself splitting in half? So again, you are confronted with yet another question. The first question was how many characters do you have in you? The next question is how many times have you seen yourself change? The surfacing of various characters in you is portrayed here. And how many times have you felt yourself shattering into pieces? So numerous questions being shot at the readers. When does it happen? There in the moment, Or when you look back and say, that is when my changing began. So again, you have another question here. When did this change come over you? There in the moment means at a particular moment, or is it after a long while when you look back to your past that you understood that you have changed? So when is it that you started changing, or when is it that you changed? That is the question that the poet raises here. Born hero, born freak. Freak means unusual or strange. Born weirdo. Weirdo means someone who is very eccentric, an odd, a person with odd kind of behavior. So again, we have antithetical or opposing statements about the character being made here. Now, earlier, the poet said that the person is born strong and born wrong, also born storm and born old. So again, antithetical statements being repeated here. Born hero, born freak, born weirdo, born blind, born seeing. Another example for antithesis. She was born blind. It might not be that she was literally blind, but figuratively, blind to the normal ways of life, and she could see things. She could see the strange or unusual way of seeing. She could not see the normal way of seeing, I mean, normal way of living, but she could, see the unusual or strange way of leading her life. Born man, she stands. Um, so this is where the poet establishes before the readers the change that has befallen or come over this particular character. Born man, she stands. So she was born a man, but she stands now as a woman. So we readers now gradually, get an understanding of the title as well now. The woman, the boy became. So how the boy became a woman. So she was born a man, and now at present she is a man. She is a woman, sorry. The hillside beneath her is crumbling. Probably the place where she is living, it's crumbling, it's falling apart. The sky frowns, and as the place where she resides or lives, it's crumbling. She goes out, and when she goes out, this is what she finds. The sky frowns at her, and frown, as you know, is a facial expression, of dislike or displeasure, and the sky is not quite happy about the fact that she has come outside. So she doesn't have a place to live, and the sky is frowning at her. The land wants to return to the sea, and it is as if the land wants to return to the sea. Probably something like the poet wants to return to her real self, or points that the poet or the speaker wants to return to the real person that he was earlier. She is food for the gulls, and it's humbling, but this is not all that she was born to be. So the poet says that she is food for the seagulls, and but it's a fact that she was, this is not all that she was born to be. She was something more. There was more to her than all the ironies which were stated earlier. All of the things in her life that have happened, all of the changes, all of the strangers, the strangers she met, or people who were like strangers in her life, it could be interpreted in both ways. So all of the things in her life that have happened, all of the changes, all of the strangers, all of the nights and the days in her heart have been present since the start. So probably here now you get an understanding regarding the character Tiresias. Tiresias had this ability to prophesy things, and all the strangers that the character has met so far, all the changes that have come over this particular character, and everything that has happened to this particular character have been present since the start. So that is, it is in these particular these instances that we find that implicit connections are being made with the mythological figure named Tiresias. You don't learn, you remember. So it's your experiences that give you lessons in life, and it's because these you remember these experiences that you get stuck with these lessons. It's because you remember that you get stuck with these lessons that you have learned in your life. Born with it all in your chest, born first, learn last, burn fast like paper unless you are wet logs. Born with it all in your chest. Probably the burden she had been bearing this particular burden for a long time. Born first, learn last, burn fast like paper unless you are wet logs. Wet logs means woods, wet wood. Wet dogs shelter in her caves when they get lost. Howl with her. This is an interesting thing to be noted here. She is someone who is lost. Now, we understood that when the poet earlier said that the hillside beneath her is crumbling and the sky frowns. So she doesn't have a proper place to stay. And what does she do? She, even though she is a person who is lost, she gives shelter to those who get lost. And in this particular context, she gives shelter to the wet dogs in her caves when they get lost. And these dogs howl with her. Probably they sang together. She has been touched without asking. So this particular sentence shows the kind of injustices and persecutions that she had to confront in her life. So she had been touched without asking, punched by a madman, drunk in a bad town. When she puts her hands down and feels what's beneath, she feels all the grief of the world. So it's like she sits on top of a mountain made of all the grief of the world. And that is exactly, or that is what the ground beneath her is made of. That is what the poet says. Lay a wreath for the girls. So probably the poet mourns the plight of girls, girls who have to confront many injustices and persecutions, like the ones the poet listed out earlier. Being touched without asking, being punched by a woman, getting drunk in a bad town, and finally in this particular stanza, the poet says, "Lay a wreath for the girls." She will march till she feels the tarmac respond. She will die for our wrongs. We won't notice. So she will march. She will go ahead till she feels the tarmac respond. Tarmac is the material used to pave the road, and this particular verse means that she will never quit. She will move ahead as long as or till the tarmac responds. She will die for our wrongs. So probably the poet is trying to equate the person with Jesus Christ, someone who died for the sin of others. She will die for our wrongs. We won't notice. So she might perish even without our knowing, probably because of the sins committed against her by us. She is fire and sleet and granite, space rock shattering the planet. She wants to stop it spinning in its tracks like a dumb child. So she is everything. She is fire, she is snow, hard rock, and even what can be treated as extraterrestrial, things that have come from outside. And she even wants to look at the extent to which the poet takes this. She even wants to stop the earth from rotating its axis like a dumb child. It's not possible, but she still wants to do it. That's why the poet refers to her as a dumb child. So she wants to stop it spinning in its tracks like a dumb child. She will be prophet one day. So again, we get glimpses of the story of Tiresias. She will be prophet one day. Now, as of now, Tiresias is not a prophet. Tiresias is a man who has been cursed and who has become a woman. And it's only after she transforms herself back into her previous self that Tiresias will be gifted with the power of prophecy. So again, the story being reflected in this particular verse as well. She will be prophet one day. For a moment, she soaks up all that she can. She will own it. So she will take responsibility of everything that happens around her, of her life. This filthy body, this life, the dethronement of all that was precious in favor of all that is tepid. Tepid means, things which do not actually interest you. So one day she'll take responsibility of everything that is part of her life, her body, things that were precious to her, things that don't interest you, everything. She will own it. Opponents mean nothing. She is Titan. Titan is a pre-Olympian god. You talk about Zeus, Apollo, all these are Olympian. I mean, gods that you confront when you read the Greco-Roman mythologies. And Titan belonged to a period before them. So he is a pre-Olympian god. So she is a Titan, born of the first breed. And Titan and the other deities, pre-Olympian gods, they were born from primordial deities, and that is why the poet here says that born of the first breed, born in the last days. Probably, the story of when we read the story of Titan, this is what we understand. They were overthrown by Zeus and the other gods, and last days could, mean the last days of Titan and the other deities. So born of the first breed, born in the last days, frightened of nothing that bleeds. The more that you hate her, the less that she needs. So the more you hate her, the less that she will need you. She will have the courage to, get away from you. All of her childhood passed in a flash when she walked on her back in a clearing. Time to be now. So it was as if everything happened so quickly. All of her childhood passed in a flash, and when she got back to her senses, everything had passed by just like a flash. And now she has decided to be herself, the one or the person that she really was. How many years will you carry, weeping and desperate to marry? How many years will you churn out? Churn out means produce. Turn out the light for the night. She has burned out, but she will be all right. She is coming up, child of her time. So here we mark the gradual change from the pessimistic tone that we had earlier to an optimistic tone. Now, how many years will you carry? How many different characters will you carry in you? Weeping and desperate to marry, to be in a relationship, to be with someone, to be with people whom you love. How many years will you churn out? How many years will you produce? Turn out the light for the night. It's enough. Turn off the light for the night. She has burned out, but she will be all right. She has exhausted herself, but she will be all right. She is coming up, child of her time. She is going to be born again. She is going to be herself once again. Red morning, blood on the tips of the thorns, and awning is dripping. Now, awning is a canopy or covering made of canvas to shelter people or things from rain or sun. With all of our scorn, we were born in days that will fill you with porn and with boredom. Grey little faces march in the squadron to war songs, penned by cynical fiends. The latest big hit that cements the routine, sell us the download, and kill all our dreams. So the poet hints at the kind of time that they live in. We have bloodsheds everywhere, and people's hearts and minds are filled with contempt for the other. It's boredom and porn that permeates all spaces, and all we have are gray little faces that have lost that human quality. Gray little faces here mean that faces which have lost that human quality. And these people, they are marching in groups to wage wars, singing war songs which have been penned by evil people who are also filled with great contempt in their hearts. And everything that becomes popular these days, seem to cement or reiterate this routine which kills the dreams that we have. So in this particular stanza, it's like we have already reached the present. She talks about the time, the present time that we all live in, or the poet lives. She rises, she will see through the disguises. They stab knives in her thighs. See the swell of her iris. She survives. She will run till the cities are vanquished and all the children are gods again. So, though there are a lot of pessimistic images described in the poem, throughout It ends on a positive note. It talks about the characters rising up and also her survival, irrespective of being stabbed, being injured, irrespective of the different hardships that she had to confront in her life. She will rise up and she will continue her life until there is life around, and we see the glory of gods or creators in the newborns again. So this is how the poet winds up the poem. So as I said at the very outset, at many points you might find this poem moving into the realm of absurdity. um, it's only when you read between the lines, and also when you bear the story of Tiresias and his transformation into a woman and then back into a man, when you it's only when you bear all these ideas and things in your mind that this poem might appeal to you. So that is all for today. Thank you so much. In my next session I will discuss a haiku written by the famous Japanese poet Matsuo Basho. So I'll see you in the next session. My students at St. Michael's, please use the chat box to mark your attendance. Please write your name so that I can record your attendance. Thank you so much.